Are you recording? Recording has started. Okay, so welcome to what burnout really is. The aim is to help you to be able to really understand what burnout is and to identify it so that you can effectively prevent it and achieve sustainable success and high performance in your career. That is what I care about, your success. So I'm obsessed about the problem so you can stay focused on the success. So, who do we have in the room? Feel free to leave in the comments your name, your role, your location, so we can get to see who is here because burnout is not a unique experience, unfortunately. It is a global problem that we're all experiencing, particularly if we are high performers, particularly if we are ambitious, we tend to be more susceptible, which we will explore today. So, feel free to leave your name, your role, your location in the comments and connect with me. So, what to expect today is this is part one of a three-part webinar, and the purpose is really simple. Understand what burnout is and understand how to recognize it so you can prevent it, recover from it, and ensure you fireproof the future of your personal and professional life from it. The goal, sustainable high performance and success. That is the goal of it. Far too many of us achieve great things. We have great experiences, but we don't have the sustainability behind it because we've worked so hard at the sacrifice of our own health, vitality, or well-being. Or we get to the end of the working day and realize that we don't actually have a fulfilling personal life that we enjoy. And it doesn't have to be that way. So we all typically understand that our performance is going to ebb, it's going to flow, it is life. Some days we're going to perform better than other days. There are some days where we'll have to work really intensely, and other moments where we need to rest and recharge and pull back a little bit to ensure that we can protect ourselves. We understand that performance is not linear because just like a heart monitor, if we were to see this on the screen, we would be a little bit worried to say the least. However, the problem is, while many of us accept that sometimes our performance is going to be better than some other days, there are going to be days where we need to work really hard and moments where we need to pull back. The real issue is we are working between recovering and surviving, which means we're in a constant burnout danger zone because the best we ever feel is that we've just recovered, i.e., we're, just getting our head above the waters, we're running on fumes. And then at the worst, we feel like we are barely surviving. Far too many of us have been living within this zone between surviving and recovering and never truly thriving. Again, the biggest threat to this is burnout, hence why it's called the burnout danger zone, because the longer you live in this period of recovering and surviving, you are at risk of burning out. So, quick introduction about myself. Hi, my name is Sabira Jones. I am a corporate burnout prevention specialist. So, I work with global brands to help them retain high performing talent by fireproofing their people from burnout. When I'm not doing that, I am a life coach. I work with ambitious professionals one to one so they can create careers that fuel them and do not consume them. And I also volunteer and work with entrepreneurial business accelerators to help entrepreneurs fireproof their founder journey from burnout as well. That is what I do. However, who I am, which is a very clear distinction, is that I am an auntie, I'm a sister, a friend, and disciple of Jesus. There's what I do and who I am, and the fact that there is a clear delineation between the two is one of the things that actually helps me to achieve sustainable high performance without the burnout. But we'll cover that in part two. So, why do I talk about burnout? Well, quick story time. I have my own experience with burnout, surprise, surprise. I am obsessed with burnout because at one point in time, burnout was obsessed with me, and I much prefer this new power dynamic. I completed my economics degree with my mum in a coma. I wrote a first class 10,000 word dissertation in 48 hours total, 24 hours writing time with my mum in a coma, which is when I discovered that actually I work really well. In fact, I somewhat thrive underneath intense situations and tight deadlines. Problem is, I took that level of resilience into my life. Resilience went from being a short-term strategy to get tasks done to a lifestyle which almost killed me. So when I graduated from university, within a year of waitressing and working as a research and policy volunteer at a trade foundation, I woke up on my 23rd birthday with sepsis and spent 7 days in hospital fighting for my life. I survived that, hence why I'm here. But the following year, I started my investment job 4 days after my mom's funeral. I decided that because my life was falling apart, I was going to throw myself into something I could control, i.e., work. And within that time being an investment analyst, I had a better income than being a waitress, which meant I also built what on paper was the perfect work-life balance. I went to the gym 6 times a week, sometimes twice a day, predominantly plant-based, meditated religiously. Once a quarter, I was in five-star all-inclusive resorts with the girls. However, 9 months into building that perfect work-life balance, I went to bed with the flu, and the next morning I woke up and I couldn't feel anything below my hips. So, being resilient to that level, whilst I was achieving great things, achieving promotional roles, achieving new positions, achieving the first of my dissertation, what was happening on the other side was that my mental health and my physical health, my emotional health was depleting rapidly. So that was my story. I had been living 4 years in a burnout danger zone, achieving great things, but at the cost of my health. Finally, in 2019, I was officially diagnosed with highly active, relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. And I asked the neurologist where had I gone wrong. He said I hadn't. Technically, I had the perfect work-life balance on paper. But that's when it made me realize that my perfect work-life balance of gym, holidays, looked great on social media, but was masking the fact that I was living in this danger zone. And I decided that I wanted to change that. So one of the first things I realized about burnout is what we've been taught about it is so incredibly wrong. Now, the World Health Organization defines burnout as being the result of chronic exposure to stress, particularly in the workplace. While there's an element of that is true, for the most part, it is wrong. And that definition calls you to be in further danger of prolonged experience in the burnout danger zone. And that is because burnout is not only the response of being exposed to chronic stress, it is also the result of being exposed to two other factors, which we'll explore. However, a lot of burnout specialists also get this next step wrong, in that being run down and being burnt out aren't the same things. So, for a second, I want you to think about your laptop. If you're using your laptop all day, a really hard thing to imagine, I know, but imagine using your laptop all day and the battery dies. We don't think, oh, that's a terrible laptop, we need a new one. We simply turn it off, we let it charge, and then we can continue using it. That's what it means to be run down. We are incredible humans, yet still humans. After working through intense periods of times or long days, we need to rest, recharge, and reset. However, what happens when no matter how long we leave the laptop on charge, it won't turn back on, or if it does, it can no longer function at its optimum. That is what it means to be burnt out. So being run down, rest, recharge, reset. Solution, yes. Being burnt out, there is no amount of rest you can get when you are incredibly stressed and when you fail to take into account the two other factors that actually cause burnout in the first place. So, quick recap again, being run down, it's when you experience overwhelm in the short term, uncertainty in the short term, and stagnation in the short term. And not only is it short term, it's also at a manageable level where when you give yourself the opportunity to rest, recharge, and reset, you can deal with the fact that you're no longer feeling overwhelmed, no longer being exposed to great uncertainty, and you're no longer feeling stagnant about what it is that you need to do or want to do. That is what it means to be run down. It's a natural response to working through an intense period of time, both personally and or professionally. So let's talk about burnout, where everyone gets it wrong. So burnout. Is it the chronic exposure to stress that can affect it? Yes, it can, because stress is just like fire. However, stress can occur both in your personal and your professional life. So the World Health Organization's definition of workplace stress leaves you exposed to not dealing with the stress that occurs in your personal life, which, if we're honest, has a greater effect on you than stress at work. But stress is also just like fire, which means inherently it's not actually the issue, because stress, just like fire, when well managed, it is productive. When mismanaged, it could be catastrophic. But if you're not aware it's occurring because you're so accustomed to the heat, you're so accustomed to working and living at that certain level of stress, it can potentially be fatal. So stress itself is not inherently your enemy. However, when levels of stress become out of control, then burnout is actually just like a house fire. And just like a house fire, If you were to call the fire brigade and you said to them, hey, look, I really need your help, my house is on fire. And their response is, we can't make it right now, but could you please just breathe in and breathe out? You'd be pretty frustrated. I know I would be. And so we need to really to understand that burnout itself cannot be dealt with through meditation, through gym, through nutrition, in the same way that a house fire can't be dealt with just by going on holiday, ignoring it, or having a good meal. We need to learn to put those fires out. However, we also need to acknowledge that actually in our house, fires can be pretty productive, i.e., a fire in the kitchen if we're cooking, pretty helpful. If we have a fireplace in our living room and there's a fire there, controlled, maintained, beautiful, adds warmth to the room. The issue comes when the stress is occurring in an environment that already has instability and already has a level of uncertainty. It's those two components coupled with the fire that causes burnout, because while stress is just like fire, it tends to be the catalyst. I.e., if your house had a gas leak, aka anxiety, uncertainty that's experienced there, if there's a flame added to that, then you have combustion. Similarly, with depression, which we're going to come on to in a moment, if you have an anxiety and depressed filled atmosphere in your personal life already, the stress, the fire becomes a catalyst for that combustion. So stress inherently itself is not your enemy, it's not bad, it's the other things and the other factors which we're now going to look at. So burnout is a culmination of three things. These three things have to be present in order for it to be burnout that you're experiencing. So the first thing is stress. The second is anxiety, and the third is depression. It's these three things acting together that causes burnout in our lives. Why? Because chronic stress, chronic overwhelm makes us feel very disempowered and makes us feel like we have no control. Experiencing chronic uncertainty leads to an anxiety disorder because you're constantly being faced with uncertainty that again leaves you feeling powerless and out of control. And when you're experiencing depression, life around you ends up becoming really bleak. You feel stagnant, you feel despondent, and then you end up experiencing depression because there's such a lack of fulfillment in your life, which means it's really hard to find a purpose, the reason, the fun, the joy in anything you're doing, both personally and professionally. So, what burnout really is the space where stress, anxiety, and depression coexist. So, in my own personal journey of living in the burnout danger zone, I decided that I wanted to move over to creating work-life success. I no longer wanted to live between recovering and surviving, recovering and surviving. I decided that there had to be more to life than just barely feeling like I made it. I wanted to live in recovering and thriving. I wanted my base point, my lowest point to be a state of recovery, a state where actually I'm not feeling stressed, anxious, and depressed, but at most I might be feeling a little stagnant and I need to find the fulfillment in the things that I do. At worst, I feel a little bit of uncertainty because I'm experiencing new activities, new opportunities. And if I feel a little bit overwhelmed, I can manage that. But I no longer want to live in a state of constant stress, anxiety, and depression, aka the fight or flight zone. Because when you're living in the fight or flight zone, it wreaks havoc on your immune system and it can leave you exposed to experience autoimmune conditions like myself with the multiple sclerosis. And this is what I've been working with individuals, both in one-to-one coaching, as well as corporate organizations, helping their people understand how to move from the burnout danger zone into that work-life success zone. So in today's video, to sum up and round up part one of what burnout really is, your action plan is to start pinpointing things in your life which are causing you a level of overwhelm, uncertainty, or stagnation. And on one hand, once you've identified them, start creating a game plan to reduce the feelings of each of those in your life. So, for example, with overwhelm, the best thing to do is put out the fires. Identify the unnecessary stress in your life that you've been contending with because you can deal with the heat and just get rid of them because they're not productive to the goals that you want to experience. And taking yourself out of a burning building is the best way to get out of fight or flight zone. Number two, start looking at the areas in your life that are exposing you to uncertainty. And again, reduce that by saying no and putting up your boundaries and really taking control of your time, your energy, and your resources, both personally and professionally, to help you regain some of your personal power and take back control of your life and your career. And lastly, if there's any areas of your life that are feeling a little stagnant, identify them and ask yourself, what is it that's causing you to feel stagnant? Do I still care about the purpose, the role, the outcome of this particular task or project or even situation, relationship in my life? And if the answer is no, you no longer care, then you need to start creating a plan to bring it to an end, to close, to wrap it up, or just say bye to it entirely. On the other hand, if it's something that you still care about, that you love, that you need to see through just because of the nature of the task or the project or the relationship in itself, then seek help. Seek help with either a coach or a therapist so that you can begin to create a game plan to remind yourself of the purpose behind why it is you're going after that task. And then a quick bonus thing before we leave. There are two important questions you can ask yourself to identify whether you are run down or you are burnt out. And the first question is, do I feel like I'm in the driving seat of my life? Do I feel like I'm in control of my personal life and my career? If the answer is yes, likelihood is you're not burnt out, you are run down. Because when you experience burnout, you experience a loss of personal autonomy, self-control, personal power. The second question is to ask yourself, do I have a clear sense of purpose, vision, and direction for my life? Do I know what my North Star is, aka my purpose? If you can answer yes to that, the likelihood is you are not burnt out, you are run down, you need to rest, recharge, and reset. However, if the answer is no, then you may be exposed to burnout and it's worth reaching out to a coach or a therapist to begin that conversation. If the answer that you feel like you're not in control, one of the things you can also do is go back to the action plan. Look at things where you're feeling overwhelmed and start eliminate the unnecessary things, eliminate your exposure to uncertainty, and then also look for the areas where you're feeling stagnant and see what you can do to move out of that zone. If those things don't work, then feel free to reach out to me. Let's have a virtual coffee and explore what are those things that are holding you back from creating and designing your perfect work-life success model. On top of that, part two and part three, we're going to be exploring, respectively, how to break the burnout cycle if you do believe that you may be living in that burnout danger zone of surviving and recovering. How we can break that will be part two. And part three, we'll be looking at how you can eliminate the threat of burnout from your future entirely. Spoiler alert, I eliminated the threat of burnout from my future in that I have been free from multiple sclerosis relapse without medical intervention for coming up to 5.5 years. I've also in that time pivoted my career and built a career which is so aligned with my core values, that is so purposeful that I am now propelled to work instead of dragged there kicking and screaming. And in my personal life, well, I have a personal life that is so fulfilling, that meets my needs both intrinsically and extrinsically, that I constantly have moments to rest, recharge, and reset so that whilst I may feel run down sometimes, I never get burnt out. So I look forward to seeing you in part two. Bye. Ladies, thank you very much for your time and your patience.
Oh, thank you so much. It was yeah, it was a great session, very useful. And